Hi everyone and welcome to Ball Python Breeder UK. I've got a fun video today, just another kind of a quick glance at a gene that has become really popular in the hobby. We're going to be taking a look at the Bongo Ball Python. So before I get too far into it, I've got to introduce my co-host for the day. This is a Bongo Pastel. Really not sure what weight, but probably around 4 or 5 years old now. And this is a really nice example of what Bongo and Pastel can do together. You can see some cool stuff going on with the pattern here and the colour, but we are going to talk more in depth about this in some combination morphs that I've produced this year, which we'll take a look at in a moment. So first of all, Bongo is what we call an incomplete dominant gene, what people used to call codom or codominant, and that means that when there's just one copy, you get a kind of a subtle effect on pattern. Not so subtle always in Bongo, but reasonably subtle. And then when you have two copies of the gene, sorry buddy, then you get a superform. So this is a Bongo Pastel, that means it's a heterozygous. It only has one copy of the gene, and that is where you see this kind of medium influence on pattern, which is a bit accentuated because it's with Pastel. Now when you have a homozygous Bongo, so you've got two copies of a gene, then you have a superform, which is kind of the same deal as yellow belly. If you saw that video that I did, there's an ivory, it's just two copies of yellow belly present in the same snake. And Bongo has a similar deal, but the superform is kind of different. It's a weird one, but we'll get into it in a moment. Anyway, the Bongo gene is it's kind of one of those genes that got quite popular quite early on. People realized it could do some cool stuff, some cool striping. People worked it into a few cool clown combos. I think Freedom Breeder did quite well with this gene, and it was initially quite popular. Now the price of it has gone down a bit. People have kind of got to a crossroads where they're not really sure. Well, I'm saying this, but it seems like a lot of people are not really sure what kind of project to work it into. So the default position is just, add it to clown and go from there, which is admittedly pretty much what I've done, kind of what I've done. But we'll take a look at that in a moment. But really the main things you need to know about the Bongo gene are that with some genes like Pastel, it can deepen and enrich the colour, but it isn't a classic enhancer gene. It's not actually a darkening gene either. It's kind of a dark gene, but it's like it has, it's almost a jack of all trades. It has different effects when combined with different genes. It's a really weird one. So as you can see with Pastel, it can brighten things really nicely. It can add intensity to the color and the yellow, but it doesn't always work with Pastel. It's almost like it varies depending on what Bongo you have. But that's one cool effect. Another effect that you can see with it is striping, and this isn't always apparent if you just mix in, like genes like Pastel. But if you cross Bongo with genes like Leopard, well, to a certain extent Leopard, but certainly Cinnamon, Black Pastel, Lesser, Butter, maybe Blackhead and Mojave, I can't remember, but definitely for sure Cinnamon, Black Pastel, Butter and Lesser are really good at helping to produce striping with Bongo. You get these beautiful snakes with a stripe almost all the way down the body and some smaller reduced pattern on the sides, and it can produce some really cool, almost black and yellow looking combination morphs. So I'm definitely going to get over to Morphmarket and show you that in a while. And after that, I guess aside from the effect on color, the effect on striping, it also has a kind of a special interaction with clown, where just a Bongo clown is just a really nice looking snake. It has a typical funky clown patterning, but it also has a kind of a rich, sometimes almost orangey or tan color on the head, which is different from the body, and then it has a reduced, unusual pattern on the sides as well. It's kind of hard to explain. And then if you do go further into the clown combos with Bongo and you add things like Lesser, Orange Dream, things like that, you can end up with a Bongo clown that has striping and bubbling within the stripe down the animal's back. Now that is pretty cool to see. Again, I'm probably not giving the best explanations here, but we are going to take a look at some examples of these things on Morphmarket in a moment. But before we go any further, I'm going to head over to the snake room and show you some of my bongo babies from this year, so you can see the effects of mixing in different genes like spot nose and pastel. So let's go over and take a look, then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got a few bongo babies here from my only bongo clutch of the year. I only got 3 in total, but it was a really cool clutch, and I actually got some of the striping and the coloration stuff that I wanted to show you and demonstrate with this gene. So first up, I want to take my best pastel of the year, a pastel het clown who doesn't have bongo, and contrast him with a pastel bongo to show the comparison. So this one I'm picking up now is a pastel bongo. What's really unfortunate is that she's in shed, so she's about half as bright as she should be. But already compared to the pastel, you can tell that she is a shade lighter. She's a shade lighter. The alien heads down her flanks are different. There's a little bit of striping on the back and dotting. And then there's some other, small stuff going on with the pattern. But you can tell that this is one of those bongos where the bongo influence mixes really well with pastel. This one, when she's not in shed, which I really wish I could have shown you, is incredibly bright. The yellow is incredibly rich and intense, and she actually puts this, I was going to say puts him to shame, but not quite, because he's pretty cool looking for a pastel. But when she isn't in shed, she is absolutely amazing. And all it is bongo and pastel, and I've got an example of the bongo gene in her mum that mixes really well with pastel. Now what's strange about this is some bongos, you add them to a combination with pastel, and it just looks like a kind of an odd pastel, and it doesn't look that different. But if you have a bongo that interacts well with pastel, you can use those 2 genes to make some incredible morphs. So I'm almost going to say that bongo is a gene that you need to think about line breeding and getting the best example you can, as well as just getting the gene to start with. It's good to have a look at the parents and ask for photos of the parents from the breeder before you buy. So that's the most basic combination everyone does with everything. First of all is adding pastel. So that's not the most exciting thing, even though she's beautiful. She's also a het clown, it's worth mentioning. Next up, I've got her, I think it's her brother actually, who is a bongo pastel spot nose het clown. And just looking at him already, you can see he's another shade brighter. He doesn't want to cooperate too much, but he's another shade brighter. The yellows are intense. He's got more striping all the way down the body, but he's keeping that nice yellow coloration from the mum. Oh, sorry, buddy. But you can see that the more things you mix in, the more bongo has that striping that starts to come out. And these funky alien heads down the side, that is definitely thanks to spot nose. But in the shape of them, it is a bit like that pastel bongo we looked at a minute ago. So you can see that bongo is having an influence on that too. But this is already a really, really cool morph and has some huge potential for clown projects down the line. I just like looking at his head, to be honest. He's got a cool white top of his head. There's so many features. The problem is that they don't want to sit still. But if I could, I'd show you their eyes more closely, because they've got almost grey blue kind of eyes. It's always difficult with babies on camera because they're not having a fun time. They don't want a bright light on them for 10 minutes. So that was, surprising as it goes when I got it out. But next up I got, which is kind of one of my favourites if I'm honest from the year, and that is this one. This is a super pastel spot nose bongo 100% het for clown. And again, we've added another copy of pastel, which works well with bongo, if you've got a good bongo, that is. And again, it's just notched everything up again. It's almost got like a white sock on the head with a strange line at the back. I think, to be honest, the spot nose is helping with that aspect for sure. It's got beautiful grey eyes. And then this time you can see that the alien heads have been reduced again. There's less strong alien head pattern down the sides, but they're a nice intense yellow colour. And this, she was actually grey when she was born, but all of the background colour is steadily going more yellow. And of course, my favourite feature when you mix bongos into combinations is this stripe, and she's got almost a full dorsal stripe. As many of you will know by now, you don't need genetic stripe in a combination morph to get striping. And Bongo, I think one of the best things about Bongo is that it can produce such incredible striping with genes like cinnamon, lesser for example, black pastel. Actually, to be honest, when I bred this, I wasn't aware that it would make such strong striping with super pastel and spot nose, but it does. And again, it's just like the Bongo gene, it just seems like every time you add something into the mix, you get something else unexpected. And I mean, this one, I just really couldn't ask for anything better. So now that we've had some time showing off my snakes, which are on Morphmarket, of course, as I always like to plug them just a bit. Now we've had a look at my snakes, let's head over to Morphmarket and see some combination morphs from some big breeders that have made some really cool stuff that I can only aspire to make in a year or two's time, really. Now over here on Morphmarket, we've got some really cool stuff from other breeders. As usual, they're mostly across the pond in the USA, where a lot of this stuff is first produced most times. And first of all, I want to take a quick look at the Super Bongo. So, as I said, Super Bongo is kind of a weird looking snake. It's not a complete, leucistic animal like a super yellow belly, for example, and it's not an extremely unusual looking morph. But it kind of brings out the tendencies that Bongo has, funnily enough. So you can already see that there's this striping on the back. Not a full stripe, but there's a stripe most of the way down. The pattern down the sides is changing. It's not quite as pronounced as on a regular Bongo. It's getting distorted. The alien heads and the keyholes, as you call them as well, are getting distorted and changing. And then on the head you see this kind of nice, kind of tan, almost going towards like a rich mahogany brown kind of colour on the head, which depending what you do with it, you can get that to look a bit more orange as well. So I mean, Super Bongo is an amazing looking snake. Probably not your main target when you use Bongo in combination morphs, but it is cool, and it's a good idea to take a look at one of these so you can see kind of, because in the super form everything's accentuated, it's good to kind of see what Bongo's tendencies are, the hidden, like I said, the hidden tendencies of this gene that's kind of a jack of all trades. Now, after that one, as I mentioned striping earlier, and that's one of the things I'm interested in, we've got a Bongo Cinnamon Orange Dream Calico. Now this one, you can see that the head is that cool lighter brown colour, and it's almost like it's got a sock on it. The colour of the head is different to the neck. And there's rich, nice, like yellow and orangey colours coming out. And that is probably thanks to the Orange Dream. But there's that interaction with Cinnamon, Orange Dream and Calico going on with Bongo here that just all works together really nicely. There's a full stripe almost all the way down the back. With the Calico, there's the distorted pattern down the flanks, down the side of the body. And you can just see how, if you keep adding in the right genes with this morph, and you keep inventing new combination morphs, you can get further and further with that striping and then that unusual kind of contrast. So it's really worth kind of thinking about working in striping into your plans, because I mean, any snake that is usually blotchy like a ball python looks unusual and cool with stripes on, but I think it looks even cooler with a snake with a different coloured head, like a lot of the stripy Bongo morphs. So it's always worth thinking about working in striping, working in contrast, and working in brightness, trying to get all of that in the same morph, and you can do that with Bongo. So for example, you could probably create similar morphs with similar striping and striking colours by using genes like leopard, black head, yellow belly, all in combination with Orange Dream and Bongo Clown or Bongo Super Bongo. Whatever, I think your imagination will probably guide you best. But there is a lot to think about, and I think this is the kind of thing, this is the kind of morph that we should kind of be aiming for, especially if you think about adding in Coral Glow or Banana as well. Now, last but not least, there is a Bongo Clown. Now, this is just an amazing looking snake, really bright. It's by Brad Boa Reptiles, and if you haven't heard of Brad Boa, I strongly suggest that you look them up on Morphmarket and check out their animals, because they produce some incredible stuff every year. You know, they're consistent in that regard. But you can see it's a nice bright animal. The different coloured head comes out even more in a clown combo. It's a rich brown colour, or almost orange on the head, and then this nice striking pattern and coloration down the sides. The only thing I would say is that with bongo clown combos, often you see this pattern reduced down the sides. So there is kind of a reduced pattern on the flanks as the snake gets older. Let's say after, you know, a year or two of age, it does change a bit, but generally they keep that cool head color, and they're always kind of a funky looking animal whatever age they get to. So now we've had a good look at some of my babies and some of the amazing stuff that other breeders have done with Bongo. I just wanted to kind of give you briefly my thoughts on what road to go down with Bongo and how to use it now. Every combination morph that I've shown you with Bongo has pretty much been done. We're aware that it does striping, we're aware that it goes nicely with clown, and if you get some really nice sort of complicated combination morphs where you're adding in OD and stuff like that, orange dream that is, you can make some nice stripy Bongo clowns and stuff like that. My thoughts are, at this point, I think it's an incredible gene. There'll be more unusual combinations unlocked for this gene, but I think we all need to start kind of getting a bit more imaginative and mixing in a kind of a combination of other genes, like, you know, blackhead and leopard in combination with orange dream, you know, more coral glow and banana Bongo morphs as well, and just see what kind of weird combination morphs you can unlock with you know, different co-dom genes, or as you're supposed to call them, incomplete dominant genes now. I've already seen a Bongo confusion, and weirdly enough it didn't do much to the pattern. So I'd say this is kind of as far as how far you can go with Bongo and what we can create, I think this is a very experimental gene. We could make some exciting stuff, but be prepared for some false starts, because I think if you tried to do an awesome confusion Bongo project and didn't see much difference between a regular Bongo, you'd be a bit disappointed. But anyway, in theory, this could be one of the most exciting genes in the ball python hobby still. What it's going to take is more experimentation. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching my snakes and other people's snakes and just getting some insight to what I think about this gene. But I also hope you've kind of seen how versatile it is and how it can have different effects on other genes and different effects in different combination morphs. I would say this could equally be an interesting clown project, or it could become part of an interesting incomplete dominant combination morph project. It's really down to you. What do you think is going to be more exciting and what's going to be more sought after in the coming years? So as always, please do like and subscribe and get in touch if you've got any questions. You can find any of my hatchlings on my Morphmarket, which is in the description. But if there's anything else that I haven't covered or you'd like to discuss, please do get in touch, and I'll be back soon. Thank you.